Right, I'm hoping David's there.
I am here, Paul. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, yes.
Right.
Yep. Can you see the screen?
I can see the screen. You can move straight on from that one.
Okay,
yep.
There you go.
Thanks for the invite, Paul, to talk about delivering DFGs during lockdown, which is what all of us who are on the talks today and listening in have been doing anyway. So if I just go through these quickly, as Paul's indicated already, the slides are available. I've got no issues taking up questions later as well if anyone wants to drop me an email. So I'll try not to read them word for word, but it might help me to actually get through them. DFG delivery at the time of the pandemic, and there's been a range of lockdowns. Walsall, until quite recently, didn't go into tier 3, or as of tomorrow, it will be in tier 3. But we'd actually managed to stay out of tier 3 earlier in the summer when neighbouring boroughs were going into to tier 3. But we have been in tier 2 for comparison for other authorities if they want to know which tiers. But it's been as a result. This is my view, the head of the OT service, but also having talked to the staff who are delivering these services in terms of what they actually think has helped us carry on doing the stuff that we've been doing. And the first one is even more flexible working from the dedicated team. And I mean dedicated in all the ways it can be used, in terms of we have a specific team that delivers them, but also in terms of their dedication to getting the work done and to being more and more flexible on how they're getting the work done. A key part has been benefiting from our previous streamlining of our approaches, and then for everyone identifying new ways of working and implementing them as quickly as possible. The key bit that we recognised right at the beginning, when COVID was first hitting the scene, was that the statutory duty to consider and approve DFGs, from what we could see, it remained exactly as it had been right at the beginning. Yes, there's guidelines in terms of how you do home visits and things like that, but in terms of actual consideration of DFGs, it was exactly the same. Next slide, please, Paul. As I said, our staff, I consider, are the key. We supported staff to do home working at least 2 weeks before the national lockdown started, as we recognised it was likely to be coming in the first place anyway, and that enabled us to respond really quite early before other services across our council were actually doing that sort of thing. So it gave our staff the opportunity to iron out the ICT technical issues, which there have been ICT technical issues. I'm not denying that they haven't, but it gave us the opportunity to try and iron out those, whilst some staff were still going into the office to try and help out as well, but also whilst others were working from home. And it go through staffing issues such as what it meant for staff actually working from their own home as well. Staff have been supported from day one by their immediate line manager. They've all got access to the Microsoft Teams software, which the council was rolling out anyway prior to all of the COVID stuff, and it's just effectively accelerated the way that we're dealing with it. They've all demonstrated a very mature approach to this, and there hasn't been any panic caused by any members of staff in terms of the way that we're dealing with things. We've got an incredibly flexible attitude. This has included 2 members of the team volunteering to attend the office. They each attend one day, so one goes in on a Thursday, one goes in on a Tuesday to scan any incoming mail, any hard copy mail that we do receive, and then to send out paperwork. And by paperwork, I'm meaning that stuff that we can't send out through a digital means, as in emails. Next slide, please, Paul. Again, staff, in terms of prioritisation, I was working on a working group corporately in terms of securing PPE wherever necessary right at the beginning, and we made sure that the OT service was a key priority area right from the start, and that assessments would be done pragmatically. Where a telephone assessment was possible and relevant, those were undertaken rather than visiting homes. So PPE was available right from the beginning in terms of our OT service, as well as other key workers within the council. all the staff involved, whether that was OTs or whether it was our staff, actually the caseworkers or the improvement officer, but also the contractors as well. They were identifying, well, look, this isn't necessarily going to work if we're going to be doing it from home working, and they were identifying things that needed changing. If anything needed changing, we changed it as quickly as possible. And quite early on, the team has seen home working as being the norm. We've had periods similar to other parts of the country where the lockdowns have been changed to such that offices in other areas have gone back into the physical office. This has not taken place for our team. We will not be, unless I'm instructed that my team is going to be going back to the office, they will not be going back to the office. There is no practical reason for my staff or the manager to be going back into the office. We continue to do updates in terms of staff and managers for their well-being, in terms of whether there's any technical issues, etc., and new ideas coming forward. So we're not necessarily looking to going back into the office ever, even when the lockdown finishes, whenever it does next year and everything. Next slide, please. Responding to the needs of the residents. The vast majority of the applicants that we've got, the inquirers or applicants, have continued to allow and ask for us to actually access their homes for the assessments undertaken by the OTs. But those are on a needs basis. If the OT considers, well, actually, on this one, I don't need to do a home visit, I can assess it on the information that's been given to me, they carry on with that and they send the referral across to our service. We've encouraged, and we've been doing this for quite a while now, we've encouraged digital contact where possible. We recognise that there's a chunk of our customers or residents, applicants that we deal with who may be older. Some of those older ones may not have the access to emails or to the digital formats that the rest of us take for granted. But in many cases, and not all cases, but in many cases, they'll have either a friend or other family member who has got that and has been assisting them in actually getting digital messages to them quicker and back from them quicker than through the Royal Mail sort of postal system. The other thing that we've done during this whole period is we've helped the corporate messages and the Public Health England messages going out to do with COVID, particularly to our vulnerable residents that we're predominantly dealing with. And this is including members of our wider team doing translations of some of the COVID information, particularly for new residents within the borough who've come from other countries where in their home, originally their originating country, there may have been different requirements in terms of what a lockdown actually means and doesn't mean in that country, and then comparing it with what's going on within Walsall and the broader UK. So they've taken part in that and trying to get the messages out on that as well. We're now developing a new telephony system to increase the ability for residents to self-help in the DFG process. So rather than sitting in a queue waiting for their call to be answered, they'll choose options and it will take them through to the appropriate the message. And on some of those messages, it will be, actually, you can just send it as the details by email. You don't need to wait for what others in call centres would call a call handler to take your call. It will just drop us an email with it and we'll have the details there. It also deals with some of the other areas that we were finding were taking up some of the day-to-day work, such as if residents have got inquiries about repayment of land charges, some of them might have wanted to have long, lengthy conversations on that. In terms of dealing with repayment of land charges, we deal with it all formally through a written process anyway, so it's just basically our systems now telling them what the process is so that they know it firsthand and they can deal with it straight away. Next slide, please, Paul. Contractors. The decision to attend or not a dwelling is for each contractor to make. We have at no stage forced any of our contractors to attend, but we've basically sought position statements from the key ones that we work with, i.e. those that we've got tenders where they're the select contractor for example, on stair lifts or vertical lifts, that sort of thing. And this has meant that we've been able to give residents a up-to-date position direct, rather than them having to go through the contractor if they can't put the hands on the contractor's contact details, and this has helped reduce the number of concerns that residents have got. So if they're aware of what the process is the contractor's putting in place in terms of them undertaking a visit to their home to undertake the works, then it's a matter between the two of them, then they can deal with it in an appropriate manner. The contractors have taken a pragmatic and lawful approach. We haven't had any incidents where other colleagues have had to get involved in terms of contractors breaching anything to do with the COVID regulations either. Our up-to-date schedule of rates has been key throughout this process, so that enables us, if the residents don't want to use our agency service, and moving forwards with us changing the way we're doing our agency service, more residents will be doing it themselves. Effectively, all they need to do is send in a quotation from one contractor, and we compare it with our schedule of rates. So that means we don't need to do a detailed home visit. If an OT refers a case to us and says it's a bath out, shower in, we know how much a bath out, shower in is likely to cost within the borough, and therefore we can base the grant on that. We ask for that one quotation so that the resident is taking more control over what's happening in their own home as well, and then we take it from there. Next slide, please, Paul. Our systems, as a cover right at the beginning, they've tended to lend themselves to home working. We've had simplified forms and mainly standardised letters, and some of the text on emails, for example, responding is standardised anyway, so that already helps with us being able to email people responses on things. So, for example, another area is with, if an OT does an assessment and says, yeah, it's a straight stair lift, it doesn't come to us until it's gone to they ask consent from the applicant. They invariably get the consent straight away from the applicant, and the contractor goes and makes sure that that person's appropriate for that stair lift, and for a straight stair lift they give us the price straight away, and it just comes through digitally. So there's no paper trail in terms of letters going out from us or not being returned by the applicant. It comes straight in from the contractor straight to us. As our paperwork's less bulky, i.e. we've got significantly less sheets involved in any of our application forms than we've ever had before, any printing that we do have to do for those residents who haven't got access or are unable to give us access to an email account, it means it's much reduced when we come to scan their returned forms, and or when we're actually printing anything off on the couple of days a week that we do the printing. We haven't had hard copy files. I've put down 8+ years. It's probably more like 10 years now. So this isn't anything new to our service in the way we're dealing with things, but it has certainly helped us carrying on. We've always had the relevant delegations in place. So I'm aware that in different councils deal with things differently. So they might have specific regular meetings either on a monthly or twice weekly basis, that sort of thing, in terms of considering DFG applications. The way ours is, the team send them through to me through the computerised system. I consider them as soon as practicable, and it's dealt with there and then. If I've got questions on any of them, I take them up directly with that individual through a Teams conversation. 95% of them, I'd say, just come straight through to me. I'll just look at them and they get approved straight away. So the other senior improvement officer within the team, he does this likewise with the lower cost schemes. As I said, 5% may involve a quick one-to-one discussion, but that's also used as a catch-up in terms of staff welfare as well. Next. As going on to it, system lend themselves to home working. We've got a shared web-based database. Yeah, there are some teething problems. It is slower operating it from home than it is from work. There have been some concerns from staff about, well, this is taking a long time, but overall it's still significantly better than some of the systems we used to have in the old days, where, for those of you who've been around long enough, you can remember filing cabinets where you were hunting out files for specific cases and then someone had filed them incorrectly, that sort of thing. We haven't got any issues like that, but the key bit is that we have a shared workload. So whilst all the cases are divvied out in between each individual officer, it's still seen as a shared workload. So if one particular person is not in, someone else will pick up that inquiry if it needs to be progressed. All all staff are able to progress schemes and respond to inquiries, and that reduces the delays for residents and it cuts down on the waste. And by waste, I'm meaning the repeated telephone calls from someone coming back to us saying, oh, Frank within the team's not had a chance to get back to you. Are you able to help? And someone in the past might have just said, well, no, you need to speak to Frank. No, it's all on the system. They can all see what's happening. All staff have mobiles and they're logged into the new telephony system. We've had a housing-based OT within our service for many years now. We've also had the same housing-based OT within our service. So she's fully aware of all the processes that we use and is aware of those and actually helps with any new OT starting within the rest of the council as well in terms of updating those and in terms of the processes that we might have in Walsall that's slightly different to if they've come from another council. Next slide, please, Paul. The team that deal with disabled facilities grants. So we have 3 caseworkers and 1 senior housing improvement officer. We just see it as a continuation of normal despite the key impacts that we've been having in terms of COVID. So between April and the end of October, we approved a total of 321 DFGs, the average cost of those being under £4,700. Just as examples, 90 plus of those were stair lifts and 172 were bath out, shower in, but that could have been a combination. I've stated bath out, shower in, but that wouldn't necessarily just be a bath out, shower in. It could have a combination of other works included with it, such as a curved stair lift or some other adaptations. During that same period, we've completed a total of 288 DFGs. So that's from schemes that some of those schemes quite clearly would have been ones that were approved in the last financial year and then they've continued into this financial year and or didn't even start in last financial year. But a chunk of those will be ones that have just been approved in this financial year. So again, the numbers there, 125 BOSEs and 95 stair lifts have been done. The average cost of those being slightly lower than the cost of the approvals. Next slide, please, Paul. I think it's about the last one. During the same time, we've not stood still in terms of a strategic stuff. So we've had a lift and hoist framework out there that's that the senior improvements officers spent a considerable amount of time working on getting that ready, and that will be available for the next circa 5 years. The slight teething issue we've had there is in terms of getting contracts sent out through the procurement systems and stuff like that, but that will be all sorted with plenty of time anyway. We're at the moment finalising a specification and schedule of rates for DFG building works, which will mean that we've got a brand new tender in place from next April, replacing the one that's about to expire then as well. And we've developed, we've been fortunate that one of the water providers within that covers the majority of Walsall, South Staffordshire Water, have come to us and have actively said, look, we want to help your disabled residents. If you can link them into us, then we can reduce their water bills, and they're physically reducing their water bills. So money is staying in people's pockets rather than going out to the water companies. We've also done much more in terms of linking our work with tackling fuel poverty. In terms of we're ensuring that every single DFG application that we get from that involves a private landlord it either has an energy performance rating above F, or it'll have to be on the register of exempt properties to make sure that the resident in that property isn't that the landlord's not breaching a form of legislation that we also manage in terms of our service. We're also continuing to advise the residents of the opportunities of such things as collective fuel switching and the EcoFlex, which has helped hundreds, probably 800 residents within the borough in the last couple of years as well. Next slide, Paul. I think that might be it. No. Yeah, sorry. One of the most important things during the course of the pandemic, there's been a range of, this is probably similar in many councils, but I just wanted to say that, and the team have wanted this to be done as well, that we're dedicating the work that we've undertaken to 2 members of staff, one relatively new member of staff who actually passed away from COVID right at the beginning of the epidemic, and another one who sadly lost his battle against cancer earlier in the year as well. So What I'm saying is, in terms of, we know what's been happening across the country. We've tried to deal with it as well as we can within the area, and there's been lots of impacts on individuals within the team, and we recognise there's significant impact on residents as well. Next slide. That might be the last one. I know I've said this 3 times now. Yes, it is. That's the last one.
Great, thank you, David. I know there was lots of hearts floating up the screen then for your last slide. And yeah, I obviously agree with pretty much everything you said. I think lots of panels have councils for deciding DFG applications.
Yeah, we haven't had one of those for 10 years, maybe. Don't really understand what it's there for. They haven't done for years.
No, my feelings of panels are very similar to shower curtains, but there you go.
Yeah, on the shower curtains thing, I know I wasn't in that one. We don't do shower curtains either. It's half-height screens. Half-height screens, and that's it.
So I think the message from this session is follow Warsaw, get rid of panels, and get rid of showers, and get rid of shower curtains.
Yeah, the other bit as well is that for any council out there who hasn't got sufficient funds to deal with their stuff, is make sure that your policies cover such things as land charges, because the last time I spoke about this sort of thing, there were some councils who still haven't brought that in, and it's difficult to argue with your councils about securing more money if you're not using all the tools that are already available for you.
Great. Thank you, David.
No worries at all. I'll
Much
take the
appreciated.
microphone off. Cheers.
Thank you.